Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to Hatman Strikes Back Daily Boxing News. A very special live stream this time because it is now official. It's been announced. Anthony Joshua and Tyson Fury have signed to fight each other in the final quarter of 2026. This is a fight which I expected to happen this year. I've been saying it in videos over the past few months. To me, it just felt like it would happen. I got a little bit concerned for the people who particularly want to see this fight, at the way that AJ reacted when Fury called him out after he beat Makhmudov. But that notwithstanding, this is a fight that I did expect to happen. I'm very happy, if I can put it that way, that the fight's going to be on Netflix. That has also been confirmed. Whatever you think of this fight, two over-the-hill fighters, it's going to generate a lot of interest. And for it to generate that interest and be accessible to most people, since most people, at least in Britain, I have to imagine, and many other countries around the world, have Netflix, it's a good look for boxing. It's not the best versus the best. You can't even say this is the top two in Britain anymore. But what you can say is this is two of the biggest stars in the heavyweight division, two of the most popular fighters in the heavyweight division, whether you like it or not, fighting each other, and it's going to be open to a massive audience. Tens of millions of people all around the world are going to tune in to watch this fight. Let's hope they stack the undercard to give fighters who are on the up rather than on the down a platform so people can get to know them more. Anyway, we'll come on to that. First of all, I'd like to shout out everybody in the live chat. And in fact, I have to read out a couple of super chats which came in right as I was ending my last live stream. I didn't actually see them until I'd stopped the stream. So first of all, big up Galaxy Edits. Shout out to Galaxy Edits if you're out there. Let me type it in the chat here. Big up Galaxy Edits, because he left a super chat yesterday. Benavidez or Zurdo, do you think either can beat Jai? Personally, I don't think Zurdo beats Jai. I think Benavidez would have a better chance, but I'd pick Jai over him too. So long story short, I think Jai beats both. Much appreciated to Galaxy Edits for the super chat. And also James Clifford, he asked me, is it possible Eddie will put Tom Aspinall in with AJ? Well, that question has now been answered. We know who AJ is fighting in his next contest in the summer. So those are the super chats from yesterday. On to the super chats for today that have come in already. Big up Mr. Luca. He says, may Usyk bless Johnson to smash Partridge. All right, big up Luca. Big up James Wood in the chat. He says, my words are weapons. I use them to crush my opponents. For anyone who don't get the reference, that's a Chris D'Elia. You know the comedian Chris D'Elia? Yeah, the guy that does an incredible Eminem impersonation. James Wood was referencing him there. Big up James Wood every time. The Alexander Usyk of kitchen fitters over there in Sheffield. Big up James Wood. Shout out to Matt Bogus, and he says, I got Benavidez. Zurdo being a draw. I think you guys are really not taking the stamina department for Benavidez into consideration. 114. Okay, I'm trying to decipher what Matt is saying. Are you saying Benavidez beats Zurdo? Or are you saying Benavidez beats Opataya? Big up Matt Borgeson. Shout out to Kieran Malcolm. Shout out to Arco. Shout out to Disgruntled Buddha. Shout out to FIFA. Shout out to Tawheed. Lucan. Trance from the past. McNoctus, Steve Kavanagh, Isaac Blings, Connor Williams, KO Talk, Builder, Joey, Kroppating, Alex. Yes, big up Galaxy Edits. I did read out your super chat from yesterday at the start of this stream. Hopefully you heard it. I just read it out at the start of this stream. I do apologize. I didn't see your super chat at the very end of last night's stream until I'd already pressed the end stream button. Big up Philip. Oh, you're saying Benavidez will gas out against Zerdo? And it'll end up being a draw? Matt says where the fight is going to be first 6 rounds where Benavidez is winning every moment, but he will slow down and Zerdo will get him into some trouble. Zerdo will not get stopped, so people saying that is wrong, okay? Shout out to Matt for the super chat. Big up Dr. Wu. Galaxy Edit says, yeah, I heard it. Thanks for remembering. I think Jai takes both too. All right, so let's get to the matter at hand here. Here it is. Eddie Hearn on social media. Signed, sealed, delivered. AJ versus Fury is on. He added Turkey Al-Sheikh. Ring Magazine. Done deal. Tyson Fury versus Anthony Joshua. Q4 2026. Netflix. Very straightforward and simple. Turkey Al-Sheikh right here. To my friends in Great Britain. It's happening. It's signed. Here is the poster. Tyson Fury versus Anthony Joshua, a.k.a. Luke Partridge versus Big Femi. But before this fight happens, both guys, yeah, not just Joshua, by the way, both guys are having a tune-up fight. AJ's fight is already announced. Partridge's fight was alluded to, and I spoke about this on yesterday's stream, by his manager Spencer Brown. Spencer Brown, in an interview with TalkSport, said that Fury's looking to get out in another warm-up fight before facing AJ at the end of the year. Now, this has got a lot of people concerned because there have been so many occasions, particularly in the heavyweight division, where a big fight is supposed to happen, it's been signed, somebody takes a tune-up fight and ends up being upset. So to give you an example, back in the days, Lennox Lewis once signed to fight Tommy Morrison. Morrison at the time was WBO champion. That belt was lightly regarded back then. Lewis was WBC champion. It was a big fight nonetheless, irrespective of the perceived validity of the WBO belt back then. Morrison was one of the bigger names in the heavyweight division as far as being a commercial draw. He and Lewis had signed to fight each other. I think Lewis was guaranteed $5 million. I forget what Morrison was guaranteed to get. Morrison took a tune-up fight against a guy called Michael Bent, who is actually British born, and he was a pretty good amateur, a very good amateur actually, in the United States. Michael Bent ended up knocking Tommy Morrison out in the first round. And that big payday for Lennox Lewis went down the drain. Okay? That has happened countless times over the years. Guys take these tune-ups and they end up being defeated. So, with Anthony Joshua, we'll come on to how I think the AJ Fury fight might go in a moment. But with regards to AJ's tune-up fight, he's looking to fight this guy here. Christian Prenga, apparently the second best heavyweight in Albania. He is 20-1. All 20 of his wins coming by way of knockout. He's a big guy. He's obviously obscure. I'd never heard of him before this fight with AJ was made. Presumably, he's pretty much trash. but he does have a very high, 100% knockout ratio. And a lot of people are asking the question, why is AJ fighting somebody so obscure? Why can't he fight somebody that's at least a name, somebody we've heard of? And as far as I'm concerned, the answer is very simple. AJ, in the minds of Turki Al-Sheikh, in the mind of Eddie Hearn perhaps, is completely washed. It's just that simple. They don't want to risk putting him in there against anyone with even a pulse, because this is one of the biggest fights in boxing history commercially that is just signed for against Tyson Fury. Why would they jeopardize such an enormous cash bonanza by putting AJ in against someone that could be competitive with him? So it's a measure of how little confidence Anthony Joshua's people and Turki Al-Sheikh have in him that they're putting him in with this guy. And in fact, I've got such little confidence in Anthony Joshua that I'd even be concerned about this guy. As obscure as he is, he's still got 100% knockout ratio. I've been saying for the past few weeks, maybe the past few months, that anyone above Jake Paul level is really too much of a risk for Anthony Joshua when he's got the Tyson Fury fight within touching distance. Because the Tyson Fury fight isn't just an enormous payday for him, it's an opportunity at redemption. There's no way that Anthony Joshua could redeem himself to the extent of conquering the heavyweight division, taking on all comers and beating everybody. Obviously, that can't happen. But in boxing, you don't need to go to that extent in order to change public perception in your favor. Tyson Fury is actually an example of that, because he never cleaned out the division or even attempted to. He never came close to cleaning out the division, but he was at one point considered the consensus best heavyweight in the world, the number one. When he hadn't fought most of the top contenders, he hadn't become undisputed, but he and his people were able to bamboozle the public with the right matchmaking and the right PR into crowning him the best in the division, and for some people, the best of all time, without actually doing what would traditionally be necessary to prove that. Ditto here for Anthony Joshua if he fights Tyson Fury, and he has signed to fight him. The only thing that can stop it now, you would have thought, is if one of them loses in their Tuneup fight or gets injured or, some kind of situation like that. But let's say the fight goes ahead, AJ now has an opportunity. Even if he don't beat Fury, even if he just puts up a good account, he has the opportunity to redeem himself, particularly in the United States. And we'll come on to that a little bit later on. So with that opportunity to make the biggest purse of his career and to redeem his reputation, why would you risk anything before then? Yeah, Eddie Hearn came out and said AJ and himself would be willing to fight Wilder as a tune-up. That was ridiculous, clout-chasing nonsense from Eddie Hearn. Did Anthony Joshua actually say that publicly himself? I don't know. But if he did, ditto for him. Ridiculous clout-chasing nonsense. They were never going to fight Deontay Wilder as a tune-up. They were always going to fight somebody completely obscure. And as I said already, as obscure as this guy is, even he might be too dangerous with a 100% knockout ratio. Imagine he goes in there, hits AJ with a big shot, stops him, knocks him out. It'll look like the worst move in boxing history. It'll look like the biggest bag fumble in boxing history. Pause. So, yeah, this is Anthony Joshua's opponent, who he is now signed to fight. It will take place in Saudi Arabia. Some people might question that, given the situation at the moment in the Middle East. Can this fight really go ahead? Is it safe to go ahead? At the moment, it's July 25th in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, against Christian Prenga. Again, Albanian heavyweight, very obscure. There are a few clips of his fights that you can watch on YouTube. He at least is in shape. Looks like he can whack a bit with the right hand, but as you would expect, looks relatively crude. Tyson Fury's last opponent, Arslan Bekmambetov, is a damn sight better than this guy. Right? Make no mistake about that. In fact, it's going to be interesting to see who Fury decides to fight in his next tune-up. And look, I understand the concern of the fans. I've just expressed why fans might be concerned, particularly with AJ taking a tune-up. But I also understand why these guys want a tune-up. It's just a matter of, have they picked the right opponents? With AJ, he's coming off a fight against a YouTuber in a terrible car accident. He needs to find out where his body is at, where he's at mentally. And he always intended to have another fight after Jake Paul before facing Fury. That's facts. They said that prior to the Jake Paul fight. In fact, it was originally supposed to be AJ fighting Rico Verhoeven after Jake Paul. That was the original plan. So AJ's actually sticking to the original plan here. He's just pushing the Fury fight back a little bit because of the accident. Because originally they were looking to have the Fury fight in September. Now it's apparently looking to be November. Now, as for where the fight is going to be, it's apparently, and this has been said by Sky Sports and also Gareth A. Davis, going to be a 2-fight deal between Anthony Joshua and Tyson Fury, or it is a 2-fight deal, meaning there's a 2-way rematch clause. Whoever loses the first fight has the option to run it back. Now, with that being the case, it's possible that one of the fights will be in Saudi, and maybe the other fight will be in the United Kingdom. Most boxing fans will be hoping that the first fight is the one that's going to be in the UK. But given the time of year, and surely this will be a stadium fight, is that a realistic proposition to have this fight in the UK in November in a stadium? Can you trust the weather? The only place in the UK that I'm aware of that has a really big stadium with a retractable roof is in Cardiff. Do people really want to travel there? I mean, maybe. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. And I'm going to come on to what some of the boxing media think about this fight. And we'll get into a discussion on how we see the fight going if it goes ahead. Big up Matt Borgerson for the super chat. He says, why a tune-up for AJ then? Come on now. Well, a tune-up is, again, he originally planned for a tune-up because he got demolished by Daniel Dubois. And there's even more need for a tune-up now because he had that terrible car accident. He doesn't know how his body's going to react, how he's going to react mentally. So I get it. And with regards to Fury wanting another tune-up, he's been out the ring prior to the Makhmudov fight over a year. He had to shake some rust in the early rounds against Makhmudov. And he won't want AJ to get sharp closer to the fight than he's sharp. So they may be competing a little bit to see who can have the best prep to get sharp before their fight. So I do get it, but you have to be careful with the opponent that you're picking. Shout out to Pick Me Boy. Big up Matt for the super chat. He says, Hatman, I'm going to be real. I think Jake Paul could beat this Prenga guy. Have you seen videos of him fighting? He's actually terrible. He needs to be terrible. Because if he isn't, if he's anything less than absolutely disastrously terrible, then AJ is jeopardizing, as I say, by far the biggest payday of his career and maybe his last chance at redemption. So he needs to be terrible. The more terrible, actually, the better. Not for fans, but for the position 8. Well, actually, yeah, for fans, if they want to see the Fury fight, then it's better for fans that this Prenga guy is terrible. Because I think AJ is that vulnerable that if you put him in with anyone with a pulse, there's the potential there that he gets knocked out. Shout out to Alex for the super chat. He says, even if Prenga caught AJ and KO'd him, I think Fury AJ still happens next. The payday would still be enormous for everyone involved. Turkey won't let it go. I mean, possibly, but it depends on the way AJ loses. And presumably and surely, if AJ did lose to this Prenga guy, he would get substantially less money against Tyson Fury. So there's an enormous amount at stake here. And yeah, I've said all along, they can't afford to put AJ in against anyone other than an absolute pie before he fights Tyson Fury. I'm serious. I don't think people realize how vulnerable Anthony Joshua is at this stage. Somebody said it on yesterday's live stream in the live chat. For some reason, people seem to think that AJ is nowhere near as far gone as Deontay Wilder. And I've got no idea why. It's as if they act like the Daniel Dubois defeat was some type of blip. It wasn't a blip. You know? It was a measure of where he's at. So big up Alex for the super chat. But yeah, I think that it's perilous, the position AJ's in right now. So let's get on to a couple of the boxing pundits from Ring Magazine and how they see the fight going. For whatever it's worth, Shady McCoy reacted to the announcement of AJ Fury like this. For those of you who don't know, Shady McCoy is some ex-NFL American football player who, for some strange reason, is a panelist for Ring Magazine on their boxing podcast, hosted by Max Kellerman. I've got no idea because he doesn't seem to know that much about boxing. Most of his opinions are very casual, but there you go. He's one of their panelists. He says this will be an easy fight for Tyson. He's literally laughing at this fight. In stark contrast to Shady McCoy, you've got Malik Scott, who also gave his view on this fight to Max Kellerman. And he says that Anthony Joshua is going to win. Yes, Malik Scott, the trainer, or former trainer, excuse me, of Deontay Wilder, is picking Anthony Joshua to beat Tyson Fury. And some of you guys may remember, I want to say it was sometime last year, Deontay Wilder was asked who he thought would win a fight between Anthony Joshua and Tyson Fury. And to my surprise, and the surprise of many other people, he also said that AJ would beat Fury. How many of you guys remember that? I did a quick search to try and get a screenshot of the video before I started this stream. Unfortunately, I couldn't locate it. It didn't come up when I did a search. But I 100% remember an interview where Deontay Wilder was asked, how do you see an AJ Fury fight going? And he picked AJ in the fight. And that's a guy that shared the ring with Tyson Fury 3 times. So very interesting. Unless Deontay's changed his tune, for now, provisionally, I'll say Wilder's still picking AJ. And certainly his former trainer and friend, Malik Scott, is picking AJ right now. What do you guys think of that? And what do you guys think of Shady McCoy's pick? Ocean Blue says, a joke panelist for a joke podcast. How fitting. Isaac says AJ is gone, but definitely still has a lot more than Wilder. Why do you say that? I haven't seen any reason to believe that AJ has a lot more than Wilder, or any more, or even as much. I find it a curious assumption that AJ's got a lot more than Wilder. Big up Matt Borgerson for the super chat. It says AJ should be fighting Curtis Harper. Truth Teller says it looks like we're getting Shakur versus Devin. Well, they're in talks, but I don't know whether that's been signed. McNaughton says Wilder is physically and mentally shot. Well, I'm going to actually dispute that. Wilder looks more physically shot to me than mentally shot based upon the Derek Chisora fight. Now, against Parker and Zhang, he absolutely looked mentally shot. But against Derek Chisora, he certainly wasn't his old self, but he was a lot more mentally together than he was against Parker or Zhang. So I'm going to say that Deontay's actually in a relatively good place mentally at the moment. And he was able to take Derek Chisora's punches too. He got buzzed a little bit in one of the rounds, but other than that, he was fine. So I've actually got more confidence in Wilder's mindset than AJ's mindset right now. AJ might be physically fresher than Wilder. I'll probably agree with that. But mentally, I think Wilder's actually a bit more together. Fernie G says, Hatman, is there anything AJ can do in his tune-up that will convince you that he is less washed than Wilder? No, because the opposition is so poor. So there's nothing he can do against this obscure Albanian to convince me he's less washed than Wilder. I think at best, AJ is as washed as Wilder. But here's the thing. Tyson Fury is not anywhere near his best either anymore. Okay, he beat Arslanbek Makhmudov without any scares. Makhmudov's a guy that's been stopped twice before. In, 4 or 5 rounds by Caballel, and in about 6 rounds by Guido Vianello. So it's not as if he's coming off an amazing performance. I know there are some Fury fanboys that were trying to make out as though it was an amazing performance. It wasn't. It was okay, given the layoff and what have you and his age. But there were clear signs of deterioration there. He's not the guy that he was 3, 4, 5, 6 years ago, clearly. And sometimes when there's a personal grudge between a pair of fighters, it can elevate the performance of one or both of them. And I do think that if AJ goes in there against Fury, if he gets past this Albanian, I think he'll be mentally in a more determined space than he's been for any fight in a long time. Because I think AJ's always fancied the Fury fight. Whether that's, foolish or not, we'll come to find out. But I think he's always fancied the fight, probably because of the time when they sparred back in the days. And I know people say you shouldn't take anything from sparring. Well, fighters do take things from sparring. They do take confidence from sparring. Whether it's misguided, misplaced confidence or not, they do. A lot of them, I'm not saying all of them, but a lot of them do. And maybe that's what AJ has always taken confidence from with regards to fighting Tyson Fury. The fact that he sparred him many, many years ago, and by Tyson Fury's admission, AJ got the better of it, at least for the first round or so. Shout out to Supersized Fries for the super chat. He says, Fury no tune-up before facing Usyk but 2 tune-ups before facing AJ. Well, actually, didn't Fury want a tune-up? He asked for a tune-up, didn't he? Before facing Usyk. You know, in their first bout of negotiations, when Prince Khalid was still heading up Saudi boxing, I swear Fury asked for a tune-up. And Fury actually did get a tune-up eventually. It was against Francis Ngannou. So he did actually have a tune-up. A big up Supersized Fries. He had a tune-up against Ngannou. And that once again emphasizes how dangerous tune-ups can be. Now, I do want to talk about the perception on this fight, because Max Kellerman on the Ring podcast or interview, whatever, when he's giving his thoughts on the fight, said that surely Tyson Fury is a big favorite going in against Anthony Joshua. Well, I think there is a very, and he also was stunned that Malik Scott outright picked Anthony Joshua to win. And this really speaks to the massive difference in perception, in public perception, of Anthony Joshua in the UK as opposed to the United States. Big up Paolo the Geek. He says Wilder was blasted out by that big lump from China and totally schooled by Parker. AJ is past it, I agree, but come on, Hatman, he's not that washed. Well, AJ was blasted out by Daniel Dubois. Right? So I don't see what the difference is. Okay, Zhang is long in the tooth, but Zhang was coming off, the Joyce fights when he blasted out Wilder. So I don't really see any difference. I agree with KO Talk. I think AJ is that washed. And the thing is, right, the performance against Dubois was alarming enough. I think we can all agree that AJ suffered some form of PTSD from the first Andy Ruiz fight, which he's never really gotten over. AJ doesn't recover well from traumatic situations in the ring. And so surely what happened to him against Daniel Dubois, which was far more devastating than what happened to him against Ruiz, will only compound the demons that AJ already had in his head. I mean, some people say that AJ hasn't been the same since Klitschko. So if he picked up demons against Klitschko, and then even more against Ruiz, just imagine how many more he's picked up against Dubois. So I don't see any reason to believe that AJ is any less washed up than Deontay Wilder. Now, again, I'll reiterate what I just said a couple of minutes ago. I think AJ's fresher physically than Wilder. Yeah. Wilder appears to be compromised as far as his right hand. He doesn't have the same power on that shot anymore. And I think it's because of all the chronic injuries and the surgeries and what have you. AJ doesn't appear, and look, we're talking about a pre-crash version of AJ. We don't know what that crash might have done to him. We haven't seen him in the ring since that crash. So we're making assumptions that he's not going to be physically any worse post-crash than he was pre-crash. Okay? But if we make that assumption for a second, then I would say, yeah, AJ is physically fresher than Wilder. But I think Wilder is actually mentally more together than AJ is right now. But big up Paolo the Geek for the super chat. That's just my take on it. We'll find out in due course. But getting back to the point I was making here about the public perception of AJ and Wilder, Max Kellerman was absolutely shocked when Malik Scott said he's picking AJ to win. And this is an example of what I've spoken about many times over the past couple of years. And that is that a lot, and I'm not saying everybody, but a lot of people in America, in the boxing fraternity, pundits, fighters, trainers, fans, they live in a little bit of a bubble in which they still think that the landscape is somehow the same as it was in the 1990s, or at least the very early 2000s, whereby if you don't win big fights in the United States as a heavyweight, you can't be taken seriously. You're somehow less than if you haven't won big fights in the States. Because Anthony Joshua hasn't won a big fight, well, Jake Paul notwithstanding, that was a joke fight. Because he hasn't won a big fight against a name American opponent, they think it invalidates everything he did in Saudi Arabia and everything he did in the UK. That those wins he had in the UK and in Saudi might as well have not happened. Because if you look at the resumes of AJ and Fury, there's not much between them. It's not like Fury's got this incredible resume that's way better than AJ. He doesn't. He literally doesn't if you look at it in the cold light of day. It's just that Americans have this, and I'm not saying all Americans, but a lot of Americans have this weird, warped perception bias, or biased perception, where, again, if you haven't done it in the States, then you can't be that good. As if the United States is the home of heavyweight boxing in 2026. It hasn't been the home of heavyweight boxing for something like 20 odd years. So Americans rate Tyson Fury a lot higher than they rate Anthony Joshua, purely because he beat Deontay Wilder a couple of times. That's it. Because he really hasn't done anything else to put him head and shoulders, resume-wise, above Anthony Joshua. Both guys lost to Usyk on points. You could say that Fury did a little better. Yeah, a little better, but it was marginal. But then you look at other common opponents. Fury went the distance with Otto Wallin. AJ blasted him out in, 5 rounds? Fury went the distance with Francis Ngannou. AJ knocked him out in 2. You see what I'm saying? When you compare the rest of that, when you take Wilder out of the equation and you look at the rest of their resume, Fury and AJ, there's almost nothing to split them. There's almost nothing to split them there. And here's my prediction. The odds of a Tyson Fury win in America will be a lot. Let me rephrase it. Tyson Fury will be a much bigger favorite with bookmakers in America than he will be in the UK. I reckon in the UK he'll be a marginal favorite, but in America he'll be a big favorite. And that will be, as I say, indicative of this huge difference in perception that American boxing fans have as opposed to UK boxing fans with regards to Anthony Joshua and Tyson Fury. Because really, there's not that much between them in terms of resume at all. I mean, just look at the pundits, right? So Max Kellerman thinks Fury is an enormous favorite over AJ. Shady McCoy is laughing at the fight. He thinks it's a total mismatch in favor of Fury. Andre Ward thinks that AJ is such food and he's such a garbage fighter that he thinks he could come out of retirement now and beat Anthony Joshua. So like a former super middleweight who's been retired, 7 years or something? He has such a low opinion of Anthony Joshua that and he's not even a puncher. He thinks he could come out of retirement after 7 years and beat him even now. And to further emphasize my point, Marcus Villegas, the proprietor of Fight Hub TV, he thinks that Andre Ward would win that fight too against AJ. Coming out of retirement after 7 years, jump right back in and beat him. That is the chasm that exists between the perception of AJ in the States and the perception of AJ in the UK. In the UK, I'm telling you, Tyson Fury will be a favorite in the fight, but he won't be a big favorite. It'll be relatively close odds. And I think British boxing fans and British boxing pundits have got a much more realistic handle over how good AJ is in relation to Fury and how good Fury is in relation to AJ. I think in the UK, they've got a much more realistic perception of things. And by the way, just to put my cards on the table here, and I've said this consistently over the past couple years, I think Fury will win the fight. But do I think it's going to be some massive mismatch and Fury's going to win easy? No, I don't. If Arslanbek Makhmudov is catching you clean the way he was, then you're not going to beat AJ easily. No, that's not going to happen. AJ is many orders of magnitude faster than Makhmudov. Many orders of magnitude better coordinated than Makhmudov. Many orders of magnitude more accurate than Makhmudov. And you can't really argue that Makhmudov is much tougher than AJ. He's been stopped twice. I'm not saying he isn't any tougher, but to say that he's much tougher, that's hard to argue. Now, what I will say is that Fury tends to fight to the level of his opposition. The better the opponent, the better he performs normally. Shout out to Andrew. Morrissey says, even though AJ's an action star, sometimes he acts bizarre. Let's switch up the visuals on screen here. We got it all wrong. McNocta says, AJ is a bad matchup for Fury. Fury does well against shorter fighters. Wallin bashed him up. AJ is going to KO him. Well, I can't agree that Wallin bashed Fury up. No, he didn't bash him up. He gave him some problems. He cut him with a nice left hand. What was it, in the third round? I wouldn't say he bashed him up. And yes, styles do make fights. AJ handled Wallin much better than Fury did. And he handled Ngannou much better than Fury did. 4Fox says, I can see AJ stopping Fury on cuts, to be honest. All right. The box says AJ won't let his hands go, though. And that's a crucial thing. AJ needs to let his hands go against Tyson Fury. If he's hesitant in any way, if he stands off too much, if he tries to be too technical, then maybe Shady McCoy will turn out to be correct. And it'll be an easy fight for Fury. If there's ever been a fight in AJ's entire career where he needs to let his hands go, it's this fight. But in particular, and I keep saying this, he needs to spam the left hook. AJ used to have one of the best left hooks in the heavyweight division. But after that first Ruiz fight, he became shy to use it. And he only throws it very, very occasionally now. Usually as part of a combination. So for example, against Otto Wallin, he threw the left hook. I think it was in a reverse 1-2 fashion where he threw a right hand first, followed by a left. Well, AJ back in the days used to throw single left hooks. He used to lead with the shot. He used to throw it as a check hook. He needs to de-mothball that punch against Tyson Fury because I'm telling you, Fury is more vulnerable on his right side, i.e. to left hooks and straight left hands from a southpaw, for example, but also left hooks from an orthodox. He's more vulnerable on his left side than he is on his right side than he is on his left side. He's more vulnerable to left hooks than he is to right hands. Look at the Ngannou fight. He made that same mistake, by the way. The one that got him dropped in the Ngannou fight, he made that same mistake against Makhmudov several times. Several times. What happens is he'll throw a 1-2, Fury, and he won't follow up with his own left hook. Or he won't smother or get out of the way after throwing the 1-2. He'll throw the 1-2 and he'll leave the right hand out there. He did that against Ngannou. That's what got him clipped. He did it against Makhmudov several times and got hit with Makhmudov left hooks on multiple occasions during that fight. If AJ can de-mothball that punch, that right there will be his key to victory, is the left hook against Tyson Fury. But he's got to let the shots go. Michael Thompson says AJ fights way too proper all the time. Seems like Fury would figure him out pretty quickly, to be honest. I suspect you're right, and that's why I'm picking Fury, but I still don't think it's going to be a straightforward fight for him. I think AJ's going to make it competitive. So Khan says AJ's always been confident regarding Fury. I do get that impression, and I'm expecting him to fight more confidently than a lot of people expect. But will it be confidently enough? I'm not sure, but I do think he'll be a lot more confident against Fury, for example, than he was against Dubois. For me, there's no doubt. Against Fury, he'll be way more confident than he was against Dubois. John Boy says, does AJ have an inside game? That's a good question, actually. AJ can throw punches inside, yes. He can throw very good, fast, short hooks and uppercuts. But having an inside game is more than just throwing punches, right? So Deontay Wilder has no inside game. Anthony Joshua, he can't throw good short punches, good quality short punches. He can't. Anthony Joshua can, and he used to quite a lot. I mean, he was exchanging with Ruiz on the inside when he got caught after dropping him. But there are things in AJ's inside game that are missing. For example, his ability to smother his opponent's work and get his own shots off. That's a skill on the inside. AJ doesn't have that. Fury has that. Fury isn't as good on the inside offensively as AJ with the hooks and the uppercuts and all that. But he's better from a tactical perspective on the inside. He can smother you, he can tie one arm up and hit you with the free arm. He can maneuver you around in the clinches and stuff like that. So the clever, slick stuff, Fury's better than AJ in that regard on the inside. When it comes to just throwing damaging short shots, AJ's much better than Fury on that front. Shout out to Busy Clergy. That's an interesting name. Oh, wow. Busy Clergy says, Glum Coyote here. I had to change account following a cyber attack. Damn. Who's trying to cyber attack you, bro? What's going on? Yeah, AJ's got to let the shots go. The one punch at a time or the 1-2 punches at a time that he throws these days, that's not going to cut it against Tyson Fury. Completely agree with Mighty Meatball. Fury's got more to lose in this fight. Absolutely. Especially in the States, because in the States, people don't think AJ's any good anyway. So if he loses to Fury, that's what most people in America are expecting. But if Fury loses to AJ, that will actually turn American boxing on its head. Obviously, these are two British fighters, but the perception they have of the heavyweight division will be turned on its head. Not just the perception they have of AJ and Fury. No, the perception they have of the heavyweight division will be turned on its head if AJ were to win. Omar says, upset is coming either for Partridge or AJ. I can feel it, bro. So I guess what you're saying is you think one of them is going to lose in their tune-up fight. Big up Luca for the super chat. He says, Haney versus Shakur, who you got? Shakur. Short and sweet. I got Shakur. What about you? I got Shakur on points. Yeah, I agree with Ryan Amos. I'm picking Fury because he's a better big occasion fighter. When the pressure's on, Fury delivers. Stu the Q says, good chance Miller outworks Partridge. I can't see Jerome Miller beating Luke Partridge in 1,000 Sundays. I can't see it. Not with those pity-patty punches. I don't see it. WizKid says, Fury used to beat Miller up in sparring. He didn't deny it. Well, I'm not sure about Fury beating Miller up in sparring. I assumed, because there was a video back in the days, a couple of years back, with Miller outside Fury's gym in Morecambe, saying that he just got his butt kicked in sparring. So I assumed he just sparred Fury. But it later turned out that he hadn't just sparred Fury, he just sparred Martin Bakole. Yeah, the sparring champion, Bakole, right? It was actually Bakole that kicked his butt in sparring, and that's why shortly after that, Miller was so confident that Bakole was going to beat Jared Anderson when they fought in America. Was that in LA, that show? So it was actually Bakole that kicked his butt in the gym, not Fury. Maybe Fury kicked his butt on another occasion, I don't know. But what Miller was referring to when he said he just got his butt kicked, he was talking about sparring Bakole, not sparring Fury. Big up Pook Lartridge. What an amazing name. He says, I challenge you, Hatman Strikes Back, to make a video about me, the Tipsy King, without calling me Luke Partridge. Do you accept my challenge? To be fair, I think I've done quite a few videos lately where I didn't refer to him as Luke Partridge. I was giving him a little break, giving his fans a little break, and started calling him Tyson Fury again for a bit. But I can do it. Let me do it on the next video. Let's say I make a 5-minute video without calling him Luke Partridge. I can do it. Puke Lartridge. Your standards are slipping, Hat Man. Indeed, the Tipsy King. Yeah, I wasn't impressed at all by Miller's fight against Pero. And I picked Miller to win. Remember, I changed my prediction. I did a video changing my prediction the day before the fight, and I picked Miller on points. But for me, Miller looked like he was really struggling stamina-wise, and that's the reason he was throwing so many pity-patty shots. Miller's never been a massive puncher, but if you go back and look at him against Ruiz, the shots he was throwing were a lot more solid than what we saw there against Pero. I mean, barely even arm punches. And knackered after about 4 rounds, really having to force himself on. To me, that's not impressive. And, you know, that was against the Pero who was stood there like a potted plant, rooted to the canvas. And Miller was just throwing little pity-patty shots at him. Against Tyson Fury, that's not going to cut it. Fury's not just going to stand there like a potted plant. He's going to be moving about. And it's not like Miller's got fast foot speed to be able to cut him down and really put him under serious pressure. So, now I don't see Miller beating Partridge at all. In fact, I think it's a pretty good tune-up for Partridge fighting Miller. Because I don't think Miller can do him any damage. Miller's not a big puncher. And Partridge is very familiar with Miller. He's been in the ring with him in the gym plenty of times. Black Dynamite says Miller needs to get back on his stuff. He's become more boring since he got clean. Yeah, I'm not sure whether Fury will stop Miller. I mean, yeah, Miller, I think, is showing signs of punch resistance deterioration. But I don't think he's as vulnerable to being stopped as Makhmudov. And Fury couldn't stop him. So, but then again, maybe Fury was a bit cautious to some extent because Makhmudov hits quite hard. Miller doesn't hit as hard as Makhmudov. So maybe Fury would be more willing to actually press for a KO. Yep, exactly that, Ocean Blue. He says Miller would be a good tune-up for Fury. I think he would win on points, then go into the AJ fight with 24 rounds banked. Exactly. Some people just joining the chat asking me who I think wins, Fury or AJ. I think Fury wins the fight probably on points. But I think it will be competitive. Could Benavidez move to heavyweight after his cruiserweight fight? I mean, he could. But I don't think it'd be a wise move. I do not expect Benavidez will be particularly successful at heavyweight. But let's just put it this way. Even though I'm picking Fury to win, I certainly wouldn't be shocked if AJ won. Again, just look at the amount of times that Fury got hit clean in his last fight against Makhmudov, who is slow as molasses. Poor coordination. And he was actually hitting Fury with counters. So it wouldn't be some huge upset if AJ managed to pull off the victory. Rybread says, will Fury or AJ hit the canvas in their fight? I think if AJ trains a whole camp to spam left hooks as counters and leads, then I think, yes, Fury goes down. Even if he gets up to win, I think he goes down if AJ can use his left hook the way that he used to. But it's a big if, because he hasn't used the left hook in that way since the first Ruiz fight. Phoenix says, yeah, but Fury fights to his opposition. Against AJ, he'll be much more elusive. The thing is, Fury relies a lot on using his legs and his reach for defense. Because once you get past Fury's reach, he's not defensively that good. So most of Fury's defense is the range control. The fact he's so tall and has got such long arms, that is his primary defense. Anyone who gets past that has a good offense, they tend to be able to catch him quite easily. And at this age, Fury's not as good at keeping people on the outside as he used to be. I mean, for example, Fury in the first few rounds against Usyk was getting clipped. But then he made some adjustments after round 3, round 4, 5, 6, he made some adjustments. He stopped getting clipped. But once he started getting tired because of Usyk's pressure and body punches, Usyk was catching him all over the place. In rounds 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. He was getting caught with clean shots constantly. Which speaks to my point. If you can get past Fury's range, because that's really his best form of defense, using his legs and his feints and his long arms, that's how he avoids getting hit. But when he gets tired, or if you're tall enough, as Makhmudov was, right? To actually be able to box a little bit with Fury at long range, he's not that hard to hit if you actually let your hands go and throw the shots. He's not that hard to hit. The feints with Fury are all a bluff game. He wants to bluff you into not throwing shots. It's like with Vladimir Klitschko. It worked very well against Klitschko for 11 rounds, right? Klitschko, being a naturally cautious fighter, was just fainted into oblivion. But as soon as Klitschko actually threw caution to the wind in round 12, he was able to catch Fury quite easily. If he'd been a more brave fighter, he would have done that earlier on in the fight, and who knows what could have happened. But he's always been cautious that way, Vladimir. Fury got in his head before the fight, and as I say, during the fight, he just bluffed him. He fainted him into oblivion. Yeah, hoodwinked by Fury. Exactly that. That's a great point by Encircled. Ngannou just ignored Fury's feints, and Fury hated that. Yeah, I will put up a poll about AJ Fury. I will do that. And I'll monitor it over the next few months. In fact, I'll probably do a couple of polls because people will undoubtedly forget about the one I do now a couple of months from now. Okay, 372 concurrent viewers, only 60 likes. Let's get them likes up, folks. Let's get the likes to at least 150. Come on. Stick a like on the stream, folks. It really helps the visibility of these videos. 366 concurrent viewers, only 61 likes. No, come on, folks. Stick a like. Stick a like on there. Come on. I agree with Joker. He says, Fury would dominate AJ in the clinch despite being physically weaker. AJ, for as big and strong as he is, has no idea how to tie people up and manipulate them up close. And that's what I was alluding to earlier on when somebody asked me, does AJ have an inside game? Well, yeah, AJ is good at throwing short punches on the inside. But he's not good, as you say, at manipulating the clinch the way that Fury is. He's not good at tying an arm up and hitting somebody with the free arm. See, Arnie Gov, you're clearly an idiot. I'm not avoiding any questions. I'm literally talking most of the time about comments that people have made. There are so many comments coming in, I don't have time to read all of them. If you want to guarantee that I read your question, send a super chat in, you idiot. In fact, just for being an idiot, I'm going to get you out of here. Because, you know, common sense should tell you that I'm not going to be able to read everybody's comment. Common sense, mate. Shout out to Cobezilla for the super chases. I think AJ gasses late and Fury wins late KO. It could happen. It's a distinct possibility. But how much of a positive influence will Usyk and his team have on Anthony Joshua? What do you guys think? Big up FIFA Junior for the super chat. He says, do we know who Partridge's training team will be? I'm sure it'll be Sugar Hill. The same training team that he's had for the past few years. Sugar Hill, Andy Lee, etc. Yeah, that guy must have thought I'm on a Limitless pill or something. You know, that pill in the movie Limitless, where you can take in 100% of information that your eyes look at. Never miss a comment when there's literally hundreds of them coming in per minute. I mean, I wish I had access to a Limitless pill. Unfortunately, I don't. And most people are wise enough to realize that. But you do get these idiots who don't have two brain cells to rub together. Black Dynamite says, imagine Dubois on the Limitless pill. Well, he needs it more than me. Shout out to Arco for the super chat. He says, odds on AJ using the Usyk link up to troll Fury. I think it would be a good move if he did. And you know what? AJ is a puppet. He's a robot. He's somebody that needs to be programmed. Usyk actually has a degree in psychology. Did you guys know this? I didn't know this until recently. It kind of makes sense now that I think about it. Usyk's actually got a master's in psychology. Yeah, look it up. Man's got a master's in psychology. And with that being said, maybe he can get into AJ's head, program him in the right way, wind him up, and set him on Fury like a Rottweiler. In Circle says, no coloring book will be left uncolored. I guess that's in reference to Dubois if he took a Limitless pill. What's the pill called in the Limitless movie? I forget the name of the pill. It's a bunch of letters. Okay, Bill says, Aski is back in his corner, that guy that lifted the canvas up before the Vlad fight and found 4 layers of foam. Oh man, the dark old days of the Klitschko era. What was wrong with Vladimir Klitschko? Why did he feel like he needed to do all these dirty tactics to gain a ridiculous number of advantages over his opponents when he was already bigger, stronger, often faster, more skilled, more experienced? He already had every advantage that he could possibly need to feel confident. But then he went to ridiculous extra lengths with spongy canvases and meddling with the opponent's gloves and all this other effery. Dear, oh dear, oh dear. As bad as Fury's been for the heavyweight division at times, he's still not as bad as Klitschko was for the division. Like Vladimir, that is. Vladimir was terrible for heavyweight boxing. Dear, oh dear, oh dear. So it was an enormous relief when Fury beat him. Okay, Druce says, Fury has never hurt anyone except White, who isn't cruiserweight size. AJ won't respect Fury's power at all. Fury has little chance of hurting AJ. Gonna win easy. Money on AJ. Fury is more physically sharp. That's a bold pick. We shall see. Arco says he battered Wilder. But I guess what the guy was saying is Wilder's cruiserweight size. He's like a big cruiserweight, right? Thank you to Busy Clergy, Glum Coyote for the super chat. He says, a girl of easy virtue connected a bug to my Wi-Fi router's outer shell. Then I was the flood, but I held the fort and detected the device. Then it was game 1 and money defended to exhaustion. Why would that young lady do that? What was her motivation for wanting to do that? Why was someone trying to sabotage you with a cyber attack? Was she trying to scam you? What was their motivation? Fernie G says, AJ's bodywork will be crucial. That's a huge target Partridge has. Actually, Partridge has got a very short torso. So I don't think he's the easiest guy to hit to the body, at least not with hooks. I think it's easier to hit his body with straight shots because of the fact that he often fights with his hands low. So you can jab him to the body quite a lot. And that's what Usyk did, of course. Usyk kept stabbing him to the body. And people have asked me whether I think that this training link-up with Usyk is a good move for AJ. And my answer is always, I don't know whether it's a good link-up long-term, but for the Fury fight, I think it is a good link-up. Because who better to have in your corner than the guy that beat Fury twice? Not that, and you know, people keep getting it twisted. They keep saying, oh no, it's not a good link-up because AJ can't fight like Usyk. Do you really think that Usyk and his team are that foolish as to believe that they can train AJ to fight like Usyk? Like, come on, give them a little bit of credit. They know what they've got in AJ, and they know it's not a bigger version of Usyk. AJ doesn't need to fight like Usyk, and I'm sure they won't get him to fight like Usyk. What they'll try to do, I'm sure, is to try and replicate the game plan. So not trying to pull off Usyk's moves and all that, because, AJ can't do that. But to replicate the basic game plan. And the basic game plan that Usyk had against Fury was to keep him working, keep him on the back foot, not allow him to clinch, not allow him to rest, and in the early rounds, stab his body constantly. Maintain a tight guard, tight defense, stab the guy's body, and just not let him rest and force the issue. That was the basic game plan. And of course, it worked both times. AJ can implement that same basic game plan. In the early rounds, stab the body, keep the defense tight, make Fury work more than he wants to work, keep some energy in reserve, and then unleash on him in the later rounds when his defense starts to break down. But obviously, how effective that's going to be will be contingent on AJ's defense in the early rounds, because Fury might be able to catch him with the jabs and all that kind of stuff. So you've got this idiot called the Boxing Division who clearly has parents who are brother and sister. What a shame. Yeah, the trolls, the fanboys are back in full effect, and they're going to make their presence known right up until fight night, I'm sure. And that's a good thing for my channel. Because when the trolls are out and about, I get a lot more views. One of the things that really amazes me about Tyson Fury fans in particular, and as I've said in previous videos, birds of a feather flock together. So you look at a fighter, you look at their personality, and they tend to attract people with a similar personality or similar personality traits. And with Tyson Fury fanboys, most of them exhibit a level of spelling and grammar that you might expect out of a 3-year-old. Have any of you guys seen, for example, Billy Joe Saunders or Isaac Lowe on social media? Have you seen their spelling and grammar? It is like incomprehensible how you could reach adulthood and not have mastered the basics. I'm not expecting everyone to be Shakespeare, you know what I mean? But good God, man. That's how you can always tell a Partridge fanboy by how terrible the spelling and grammar is. Shout out to Busy Clergy for the super chat. He says, her motivation was the oldest of old, to relieve me of my cumbersome euros. She is a con artist of some magnitude and a replete bag of tricks. A shout out to Busy Clergy. Speaking about Shakespeare, Busy Clergy's super chats are often very poetic. Bear in mind he is a Frenchman, so the English is not going to be perfect, but there's a poetic nature to his to his super chats. Much appreciated. I do enjoy his vocabulary. Shout out to Busy Clergy. And it's a shame that that woman tried to scam you like that. So I live in Africa now, and as a foreigner, you're perceived as having money, right? You're perceived to have money. Truth be told, from what I can remember, the only people that have tried to scam me here have been women. And not women that I've been romantically involved in, just, for example, taxi drivers that have been women. People that work in shops and stuff like that. People have attempted to scam me a few times, and it's always been women. Maybe it's because as men, we let our guard down around women, And maybe women know that because they're women, you're going to let your guard down. And that's why they try it more than men try it. Shout out to Puke Lartridge. He says, you talk. Yeah. Obviously Puke Lartridge is trolling, but that's an example of the kind of diabolical spelling that you can expect from a Partridge fanboy. Big up Puke Lartridge. FIFA Junior says, hopefully an all heavyweight undercard. That would be good. That would harken back to, some of the previous Riyadh season cards. But even the Don King cards back in the days. Stacked full of heavyweights. Eddie Hearn used to do that for a bit. One of the best cards I remember in the Eddie Hearn heyday was the Dylan White Joseph Parker card. That had some good fights on it. Somebody just mentioned Mark Demori. I'm not even joking, right? AJ might be better off fighting Mark Demori than fighting this Albanian guy. Hrgovic fought Mark Demori, and Hrgovic has got a chin. Remember when Hrgovic fought Mark Demori as a stay busy fight? Hrgovic has never been knocked out. He was stopped by Dubois on points. Busy Clergy says, when will Yoka's next opponent be announced? So, Tony Yoka said that Frank Warren has promised him a fight. I think he said in May or June. So, it hasn't been announced yet, but Yoka did say on TalkSport that he's spoken to Frank Warren, and Frank Warren has promised him that he will get him a fight very soon. Kieran Malcolm says, Hatman, I was at the White versus Parker fight. Every fight had a knockdown. Wasn't Chisora versus Takam on the undercard, or was it Chisora versus Spilka? I forget now. I want to say it was Chisora versus Takam. Andre Rodriguez says, is Yoka still with Virgil Hill? I guess you meant Virgil Hunter. No, he's not with Virgil Hunter anymore. He's now being trained by Don Charles. And by the way, did anyone see the little back and forth? I don't know where it was, outside a gym maybe, between Denzel Bentley and Felix Cash the other day? Any of you guys see that video? Where Felix Cash was basically trying to press Denzel Bentley for a rematch. Denzel Bentley has subsequently gone on, I think it was TalkSport or some YouTube channel, and said that Felix Cash is a cheat. Sports fan says Felix Cash was kind of bullying Denzel there. How many other travelers was Felix Cash with during that situation? That might give you some indication as to why Denzel didn't try and get too rough. Yeah, Felix Cash looked very good that night. He stopped Denzel Bentley, but as other people have said, he then left the Sims gym and his form has gone downhill. He got beaten up and embarrassed by, what's his name again? I forget the guy's name. The Southpaw with no knockouts or very few knockouts from the Midlands. What's the guy's name again? That beat Felix Cash? Tyler Denny, yes, Tyler Denny. Tyler Denny, not even a puncher, but he had Felix Cash on ice skates. Yeah, it is Kieran Malcolm. It's mad how the careers of Bentley and Cash have gone in opposite directions considering what happened when they fought. It's kind of similar to Martin Bacoli and Michael Hunter. I mean, Martin Bacoli isn't in the greatest position right now, but overall, Bacoli's had a much more successful career than Hunter, hasn't he? And Hunter stopped him. He stopped him back when Bacoli was actually in shape. Bacoli has gone on to be involved in big fights on big cards and make a lot of money. And Michael Hunter has just drifted off into obscurity. And Hunter hasn't officially lost the fight in all those years. His only official loss was to Alexander Usyk. Yeah, that's right. Shiraz got an early stoppage against Denny. Imagine Shiraz against Cash. Cash don't want that smoke. He definitely don't want that smoke. Yeah, there was some talk that Hunter was going to sign with Zuffa, but I'm not sure if he's still tied up with Don King. Because Don King was claiming he still had a contract with him. And that really speaks to what somebody else just said a minute or so ago in the live chat. Hunter's an idiot. Who the hell signs with Don King in this day and age? Like, what are you doing? Busy Clergy says, how do you see the promotion going around this fight? I think there's going to be a load of promotion. Okay, it's Netflix, and Netflix so far haven't pushed their shows to the extent that DAZN pushed theirs. But I'm sure there will be a big push with this fight. Certainly in the UK. The back and forth between the two fighters should be interesting. I think AJ has tried to set the tone regarding the back and forth with the way he responded to Fury's call-out after the Makhmudov fight, where AJ refused to get in the ring. He refused to commit to the fight. He was sat there calling himself the landlord, saying, I'm your boss, this, that, and the other. So I think AJ has a clear idea of the way he wants to approach the build-up to this fight. That he wants to be as awkward with Fury as possible and not dance to his tune. And that might be quite entertaining to watch. The Joker says, I'm 24 and I still think Don King might outlive me. Dude's a straight vampire. Yeah, Don King and Bob Arum. And one thing I've noticed in my life, and I'm not as old as Don King, folks, but one thing I've noticed in my life is that bad people, evil people, tend to live the longest. So much for karma, because from what I've seen, look, not all bad and evil people live a long time. Some of them live a very short life. But there is intelligence that you also have to take into account. If it's a bad, evil person that is very dumb, they're probably not going to live long. But if it's an evil person that's also intelligent, they tend to live a long time, in my experience and from what I've observed. If it's an evil, intelligent person, they're going to have a great life and live a long time. Shady says, Bob Arum's evil? Well, no, I'm not saying that only evil people live a long time. But as a generalization, if someone's evil and they're intelligent, they're probably going to have a long, happy life. And Don King obviously wasn't an academic achiever, but he is intelligent. Oh, Don King's intelligent. You know, he's like a criminal intelligent. Don King was a gangster from Cleveland before he became a boxing promoter. He got them street smarts, you know? That street savvy, that criminal intelligence. NJ says, intelligent people who manage stress well and live disciplined lives tend to live longer, good or evil. I find that intelligent people who have a conscience, who are moral, who are deep thinkers, they tend to live troubled lives, actually. Not all of them, but a disproportionately high number of them tend to live troubled lives. You see, because a simple person who doesn't think very deeply, who takes things at face value, they don't stress as much. They sleep a lot easier at night. But an intelligent person who has a moral compass, who has empathy, they're often very troubled because they realize how evil the world is. And they realize how prosperous a lot of evil people are. And it bothers them. WPW says, I don't think Don, Bob, Donald are happy, but they are rich. I think Don King is happy. You know, it's my opinion, having followed Don King's career for decades and having studied psychology, but specifically psychopathy as a hobby over the years, it's my opinion that Don King is a psychopath. And it might distress people to know that psychopaths are generally happier than normal people. Yeah, you study psychopathy, and this is one of the things you'll often find out. Psychopaths are generally happier. They tend to have a much higher level of stress tolerance, risk tolerance. They don't get as worried about things. And they're generally happy people, psychopaths. Yeah. I'm talking about the ones that are born psychopaths, not the ones who develop psychopathic traits through trauma, but the ones who are born that way. And many forensic psychologists will tell you that true psychopathy is innate. It's just something certain people are born with. And they tend to be very happy people. Because the way that psychopaths see things, and shout out to Busy Clergy for the super chat, he says, yeah, so according to my little experiment with a scam artist, I'm going down in flames quite imminently. Oh, damn. I hope not, bro. Plum Coyote says he's going down in flames quite imminently. What little experiment do you mean there? But yeah, with regards to psychopaths, they tend to be happy because the way psychopaths see it is having a conscience and having empathy is a handicap. That's the way they see it. That's why I'm always very cautious of people who say they have no regrets. Somebody that says they have no regrets, they're telling you either one of two things: that they've never wronged anyone, or they don't care that they've wronged people in the past. It can only be one of two things. Either they've never done any wrong to anyone, or they don't care about the wrong that they've done. If they claim they've never done any wrong to anyone, well, there's a lack of self-awareness, right? But if they have wronged people and they don't care about it, it suggests a lack of empathy. So you've got to be careful with such people. And the no regrets thing, interestingly enough, seems to be far more, something you hear far more commonly from women, doesn't it? No regrets. Huh? I've got regrets. I've done things to people over the years, particularly when I was young, that I regret, that I feel remorseful about. You know, it's called growth. Do you know what I mean? You grow up and you realize you shouldn't be treating people a certain way. You know? You put yourself in their shoes and think, damn, man, I was horrible in that situation. Busy Clergy says, I am too empathetic. Yeah, it's a shame, isn't it? He says, and too trusting too. I was aware of the scam going on, but I went along out of sympathy. Busy Clergy says, the happiness you describe seems to me a very poor version of what it could be. Yeah, it's unfortunate, isn't it, that if you are a good-natured person and you enjoy being kind, you will attract people that want to take your kindness for weakness. Those people will hone in on your good nature and try and take advantage of you. Yeah, people always like when I talk about psychopathy, because I think everyone realizes that psychopaths, despite being a small minority of the population, have a disproportionate impact on the lives of everyone, right? That's why people are fascinated with psychopaths. And a true psychopath, normally, when psychopaths do very bad things to people, when they're asked about the terrible deeds they've done, they will often laugh about it. They'll laugh and act like it's no big deal. That's typically their response. When they're banged to rights. When the psychopath is trying to avoid being caught, then of course they're going to gaslight and do this, that, and the other. But after they've been caught and convicted or whatever, let's say they're in prison, their attitude towards it is usually to laugh and find it funny. They have a very nonchalant attitude regarding what they've done. And in fact, they look at people as strangely who are outraged by what they've done. They're like, what are you talking about? It's not a big deal. Robski says, do people seem happier than those less burdened by being deep thinkers? Yes. There are two things that burden people with unhappiness. Well, one main thing, actually, being a deep thinker. Or let me say, excuse me, two things. Being a deep thinker and or being empathetic, right? When somebody is really empathetic, they're usually quite troubled. Unless they're in some kind of bubble where they're really not very bright and they're cocooned in this little safe bubble of a world where they never are exposed to the realities of life. Shout to Busy Clergy, he says, also, I don't want to become this bitterroot, anxious, fear-driven man who always rejects life. And so what in the end? Well, it depends on what context. I mean, in which context should I say? So, I live in Africa, right? And as somebody coming from the West to live in Africa, if you think that you are going to be able to trust people to the same extent in Africa that you can in the West, then you're going to have a rude awakening here. Right? Here, I mean, in any country you trust no one, but here you really trust no one. Coming from the West, they think you got money. So many people are looking to separate you from that money. For some people, that reality is so horrifying that they would wake up every day and feel miserable here. Right? But since I'm already, and I already grew up in a low trust environment, you know what I mean, in South London in the 80s and 90s. So I've always been a wily old so-and-so. And London in general is relatively low trust. You know, you don't trust people easily in London unless you want to get taken for a donut. So I'm already in that place, and I've already been in that place for decades in my life where I just don't trust people. So to me, it's not a big deal. You know, coming to Africa and having to be cautious about people. And the main thing you have to be cautious about in Africa is people trying to rip you off, people trying to scam you. So it's not really a big deal to me because that's the way I am anyway. I already have my guard up regarding those things. But to some people who are used to operating in a high trust environment, maybe in some nice village or nice town in a nice community where, you know, people are generally honest and good, for them coming here would be, you know, horrifying and depressing. And as for example, relationships, because that's a thing where trust is a big issue, right? It depends on whether you're a man or a woman. I saw a video by a female member, I think, of the Nation of Islam. I forget her name. Is it Shahrazad Ali or something like that? I've seen a lot of her videos over the years. And she did a video, it might have been back in the 90s. You can still see the clip online. Where she's saying that men black men specifically are hypergamous by nature. And she doesn't like the fact that they're hypergamous by nature, but she thinks it's better to accept it and learn to live with it than continue to delude yourself into thinking that you can force them to become monogamous. So she basically encourages black women to just accept that, you know, the men are going to be polygamous and bring it all out in the open so that they can be honest about it, so that there's no lying and going behind people's backs and stuff like that. And that's something that I've been pushing over the past few years. Like, unfortunately, I don't know how it works in other communities, but I've always found in my life that a monogamous man, in the context of dating in the black community as a black man, a monogamous man tends to have more problems, right? Tends to have more problems than a polygamous man. And I'm talking about a man who's openly polygamous, not a man who's, you know, running around cheating and doing things in the dark. I'm talking about a man who's openly polygamous tends to have less problems with women than a man who's monogamous. And that really speaks to the complexities and oddities of female psychology. Because the way that women describe things, it's as if all you have to do is be monogamous and then you're not going to have any issues with them. But I found it to be quite the opposite. Rye Bread says, I'm terrified of death. WPW says, I have no fear of death. Yeah, I'm definitely in the same camp as WPW. I am not afraid of death. Obviously, I wouldn't want to have a painful death. Nobody does unless they're sick. But I don't fear not being here. Yes, I am afraid of infirmity. Yes, that I am afraid of. That's worse than death, to me. To hell with infirmity. To hell with that. And that's why I've long said, if I was ever in a position of having some, terminal illness that turned me into a vegetable, I would rather death. To hell with that. I wouldn't be trying to hang on and take treatment and be some kind of invalid for, hell no. Get me the hell up out of here. We're not doing none of that. We're not doing none of that wheelchair stuff and nappies and no, we're not doing none of that. Get me the hell up out of here. I've told my family long time, if ever I was in that position, you better switch the machine off. Because if you bring me back and I'm some kind of vegetable or, disabled, I will curse you for the rest of my days. Do not ever, ever bring me back to be like that. You better let me go. What kind of life is that? Shady says, we don't know if it's worse though. Well, I'll take my chances. I'll take my chances. That's it. Friendly G says, how could it not be? Well, because we don't know what happens after we die. People have theories and beliefs and all that kind of stuff, but until you've been there, you don't know, do you? And obviously, religious people, some of them, believe that there could be hell, eternal damnation after we die. I do find it interesting if that individual who said that they are terrified of death could expand on it a little bit. I do find it interesting, the people who say they're terrified of death. See, I've got a friend who works as, well, up until recently was working as a nurse. He now does some other kind of job in healthcare. I think he's still in the NHS, but he's in some kind of like clerical office type job. But he said that most people in his experience are terrified of death. Even old people who are close to the end, they're absolutely terrified. And so me and him had a long conversation about it, and I was like, why are they scared? I don't get it. What are they scared of? I'm surprised that all these old people are terrified. He's like, yeah, man, most of them, they're all crying and they're scared of dying. I don't want to die, and all this kind of business. And I'm like, why? I don't get it. Maybe it's because I haven't seen that kind of thing in my family. So when my grandmother on my mom's side died, she died very peacefully. She wasn't afraid. She was with her kids, right? My mom and my mom's siblings. And they said she died, happy, smiling with them. She'd been sick for a long time. She had cancer. And she said she died very peacefully in her sleep and there was no fear or anything. But then you hear about these people who are like terrified of death. I'm like, I don't get it, especially if you're like old. Why are you scared? Rye Bread says, I developed the fear of death when my dad died 5 years ago. I see. Afro Jam says, a lot of people are secretly no good. That is why they are panicking. Ninja Warrior says the same thing. Christians may fear judgment. Now that I can understand. Peter says the only thing that scares me about death is the world I'm leaving my kids in and not being here to guide them. Now that I completely understand. Yes. That's a fear I can understand. Not being around to guide your kids. Yeah. That I totally get. Speaking about fear of death, we're living in Africa. It is the land of the supernatural. A lot of bizarre stories and superstitions and stuff. And I do hear some weird sounds at night sometimes, and I'm like, what in the world is that? Is it like the Mothman or something? Yeah, a lot of witchcraft and what have you. No, I don't have orbs floating around the room. I'm agnostic. I don't believe nor disbelieve in the afterlife. That's part of. But then again, it depends on what you mean by afterlife. I suspect that consciousness survives the body, but whether it survives the body in, for eternity, I don't know. But I don't say that as a firm belief. Do you know what I mean? It's just a suspicion. I suspect that consciousness survives the body for some amount of time anyway. But as far as an afterlife, I mean, do you mean heaven and hell? And depends what you mean by an afterlife. Big up 1-1. He says, I'm not really scared of death itself, but I am scared of leaving people that rely on me. My dad ain't scared at all, so I guess I get it from him. Eldon Joe says, maybe you wake up and it was all a dream. It was all a dream. I used to read Word Up magazine, Salt and Pepper and Heavy D up in the limousine. Sometimes when people say they're really scared of death, I'm not talking about the ones who are scared of leaving people behind, people they want to look after, but people that just have a general fear of death. I think that their lives must be so sweet, right? Their lives must be so comfortable, and they must feel happy to such an extent and have such little hardship. That's why they're afraid of death. They're afraid of it all ending, because they enjoy their lives so much that they're like, nah, man, this can't stop. I'm terrified of this stopping. It's too nice. Shady says, not always. Sad people don't want to leave without accomplishing anything. Depends how old they are. Shout out to Busy Clergy for the super chat. He says, intellectual life is a blessing, I believe. If you're around other intellectuals, yes. But imagine being an intellectual person surrounded by idiots. Then it'll feel like a curse. Then you'll feel so alone. I mean, Carl Jung, in later life, basically descended into madness. I mean, maybe he wouldn't have seen it that way. He would have just seen it as individuating, right? But he became very lonely, as far as I'm aware anyway, towards the end of his life, because there was nobody else that could really think on his level, or very few other people that could think on his level. And that becomes a lonely place. Music playlist says Nietzsche went insane as well. Apparently, he saw someone beating a horse and flipped, never regained sanity. Omar says Orange Man was attacked yesterday. Well, I think the same about that as I did about the other attack. I think it's WWE stuff. I think that's how desperate the political class have gotten. When your ratings are that bad, you turn to theatrics. One says, nobody knows what happens when we die. I have the same suspicion as you. But all these people talking like they're certain just believe and are too deep in to realize that. Although there are some people that have had near-death experiences who claim that they've seen whatever is beyond. Yeah, I guess my view is kind of similar to yours, WPW. I'm not that amazed by life. Do you know what I mean? I don't find life to be that amazing at this stage. I wonder what else there is to experience. Shady says, maybe if you had a different life, you would though. Yeah, I mean, maybe if I was a billionaire or somebody very rich and I could play Age of Empires or Sim City in real life, maybe it would be more interesting. Super Ferocious Warriors Ninja Warrior says, the purpose of our existence is to worship God. Well, that's your belief. And, for somebody of my personality type, to have the entire meaning of existence be something as mundane as worshipping some spirit entity. Like, for somebody of my personality type, that's really... I'm trying to describe what I think of it in the most respectful way. That's not the one, bro. I'm not a subservient person by nature. I always think about that scene from the movie 300, where Xerxes tries to offer Leonidas a deal. And he basically says, I would give you a prominent position in my empire, in the Persian Empire. You'd have this, you'd have that. All that I ask is that you take the knee. And Leonidas acts like he's about to take the knee. But then he's like, that kneeling thing, it's going to be a bit of a problem. You see, I've got bad knees. And that's me, bro. I'm not the subservient type to be worshipping anything or anyone like that. You know what I mean? Like, my whole purpose in life is to serve and worship someone? No, bro, that's just not me. What I can tell you about me is, I'm a decent human being. I try to treat people with decency and, you know, treat people well, and I'm not rude. I'm not antisocial, you know? I try and treat people the way that I would want to be treated in my daily interactions. You know, politeness, pleases and thank yous, and I help people where I can. And if there is a God and that's not good enough, me just being a decent human being, if that's not good enough, and I must also get down on my hands and knees and devote myself and worship this entity, then beam me up, Scotty. Seriously, beam me up, Scotty, because no, we ain't doing that. So Ninja Warrior says, it is in our nature to worship and feel contentment from doing that. Chasing worldly desire does not bring happiness or satisfaction whatsoever. Again, you're trying to speak for everyone instead of just speaking for yourself. It isn't in my nature at all to worship and feel contentment from doing that at all. I have a completely different personality type to you. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with your personality type, but my personality type feels the absolute opposite from just feeling contentment from worshipping this entity. No, to me, that would feel like hell. Like absolute hell. To just live to worship an entity. There's nothing, no kind of happiness or anything that comes from that for me. That's like hell. But, you know, I'm a different kind of person. I mean, for example, I hated school. School for me was like hell. I hate, and always did hate, being an employee. That's why when I quit my last position as an employee, I promised myself I would never work for anyone ever again for the rest of my life. My personality type is not cut out for servitude. It makes me incredibly and intensely unhappy when I have to live under someone else's regime. I feel desperately unhappy when I have to be under someone else's regime and routine and answer to someone. I hate it. That's why I hated school. That's why I hated being an employee. It's not because I'm not an intelligent person. It's not because I don't like learning. I like learning. I just like doing things on my own time, at my own pace, and in my own way. I don't like being under the cosh, you know? I don't like it. It just doesn't work for me. Mark Haldir says, you're subservient to YouTube, though. You have to follow their rules. Well, YouTube is not my only source of income, for one. And for two, when I do YouTube, I do it whenever I want to do it. I don't have to wake up at a particular time. There are no deadlines. There's nobody telling me you have to do this at this time or do that. I mean, all of us, the vast majority of us, obviously exist within someone's regime under a government, right? What I'm telling you is the less interaction that I can have with any kind of authority figure, the happier I feel. Let's just put it that way. I'm one of these people that just wants to be left alone. Leave me alone. Don't try to tell me what to do. Don't try and put me under any kind of regime or schedule. Just leave me the hell alone. I do things on my own time when I want to do them. Let that. I don't want to have to ask permission to do anything, to go somewhere. The Biaka says, participating in the monetary system in general is working under someone else's regime. Well, yes, but like I say, there are degrees to it. And it's not like, at some point you don't have any choice, right? But where there's a choice, I will always choose the path that gives me more independence, the path that authority figures have less control over me. So there's always degrees to it. So for example, I am far more independent than most people in society. Most people in society work for someone. And those people who work for themselves, they, in many cases, have bricks and mortar businesses. They can't just up sticks and move to a different country and move around. They can't do that. So I have engineered my life in such a way to where I can do that. And I'm much happier doing that than being tied down somewhere with a bricks and mortar business or, as an employee or whatever. I don't like that kind of thing. There's nothing wrong with it. If you like it, that's good for you. But I don't like it. It doesn't suit my personality. It doesn't suit, if you want to get spiritual, it doesn't suit my spiritual character, my spiritual essence, my spiritual nature. Am I a Christian? Definitely not. Shout out to the Christians out there. I am definitely not a Christian. I'm not a religious person. I'm not an atheist. I'm agnostic. But those Abrahamic religions, particularly Christianity, is not for me. I've been asked many times if I had to, and heaven forbid I had to, but if I had to pick one of the Abrahamic religions, I think some people have said which one makes the most sense. Well, Judaism makes the most sense because it's the original one. And the story within it is quite straightforward and simple. You know, the story in the Old Testament, it's not very complicated. When it branches off into Christianity and Islam, it gets a lot more complicated. So, like, Judaism is more simple and straightforward in the basic tenets of the Old Testament and the Ten Commandments and, you know, the Hebrews and all that kind of stuff and their journey. But I wouldn't want to follow any of them. Truth be told, it's not for me. No, I didn't grow up religious. I'm definitely not going to join the Black Hebrew Israelites. I'm definitely not doing that. I haven't watched The Home with the Furies. I have no intention of doing so. I tried to watch a little bit of the Eddie Hearn thing, but I was like, nah, man, I can't do this either. I see enough of all those guys on YouTube week in, week out, day in, day out, to want to then go and watch them on Netflix as well. Like, as a boxing content YouTuber, I have to consume copious amounts of boxing interviews and news stories like every day. So the last thing I really want to do is then go onto YouTube and start watching more of these bloody people. I need a break. I mean, I need a break from these people. CBC Boxer says, did you ever consider setting up your own bouncer business? Hell no. Hell no. That's one of the last businesses I want to be involved in. Hell no. Nightclub security? Hell no. T-Money says, why announce it before AJ had his fight though? Seems a bit premature. It's quite common. It's often done. I moved to Africa in September, last September. Wave says, have you ever had to knock someone out cold as a bouncer? Yes. Did I get an adrenaline rush? No, the adrenaline rush was before I knocked him out. You know, most of the time, when I got involved in fights as a bouncer, the survival instinct just kicks in. You know, you realize before you get into the fight that you're going to be in a fight, right? Because you're normally going in there to either turf people out who are causing problems, or turn people away who you think might cause problems. Do you know what I mean? So you're already full of adrenaline and locked in before you've even engaged most of the time. And the last thing you want is to hit someone and for them to be seriously hurt or worse. Definitely don't want that. So you do what you have to do at the time to eliminate the threat, and you just pray for the best. Fanny G says, is Africa the final destination, Hatman, or just a stop along the way? It's the final destination. This is it. It's the, you know, for any black person, it's the return to source, isn't it? It's the return to source. But what I can tell you, you know, it's like a lot of white people in America, in Australia, in New Zealand. Most of them are curious, at least, to go to Europe to see where their ancestors are from, even if it's many, many generations ago. Most of them are curious to just have a look and see whether they feel anything, you know? Whether they feel the ancestors calling them. So it's kind of like a, you know, a return to source for any black person to go to Africa. But I think a lot of black people in America in particular are so far removed from source that they can't really acclimatize to life in Africa. I would say that black British people are able to acclimatize here a lot better. But black Americans, a lot of them struggle here because they're so far removed from the African mentality, the mindset, the culture. You know what I mean? They don't really understand African people, the way they think, the way they are. They don't get it. And a lot of the black Americans that come here have got a very, very misguided perception of Africa, which they get through like Afrocentric circles and stuff like that. They have a very idealized and misguided perception of what Africa is and what Africans are. And so that's why some of them struggle when they come here. Whereas I knew exactly what Africa was long before I came here. And as long as you know what it is, then you'll be fine. Because, you know, I already had loads of African friends. Most of my friends that I spend time with are born and raised in Africa over the past few years. You know, my Caribbean friends, I don't spend as much time with them, talking to them as I used to. And throughout my 30s in particular, I more moved towards African friends. People that are born and raised in Africa, not just people that have African ancestry, but the ones who are born and raised with African accents and everything. So I was already immersed in African culture and African people before I came here. Who is this Penga guy Joshua is fighting? He's the second best heavyweight in Albania. In other words, he's a complete cream puff. But you can't really, or I can't really deride AJ for fighting this guy because the Fury fight is right there. And AJ is shot to bits. So it'd be kind of foolish to jeopardize the biggest payday of his career and a shot at redemption by fighting somebody with a pulse. So, One says, for me, going to Africa was always a beautiful experience. Although there are some obvious issues, I feel at home anytime I'm there. So one of the things about different races in general is they all have a slightly different way of communicating, right? They all have a slightly different vibe. Now, the vibe isn't uniform across all nations within a race, right? So the vibe of Spaniards is a bit different to the vibe of Germans and Brits and Italians, right? They all have a slightly different vibe, but generally, Europeans have a kind of a certain vibe and a certain way of communicating, right? The same is the case with Orientals, right? They have a particular vibe generally and a way of communicating, and the same is the case with Africans. The way the Africans communicate and their demeanor, their body language, all this kind of stuff. For me anyway, there's a familiarity to it. For me. It feels familiar somehow. And I just get it, you know? So IWP says, hi man, why do you think Fury has been able to stay a bit fresher for longer than AJ, considering he hasn't lived the athlete's lifestyle at all? Well, with Fury, it's not really physical freshness, it's mental toughness. Fury is just a mentally tougher guy. And he's got better powers of recovery. He hasn't been knocked out. So Fury doesn't have all the PTSD and anxiety that AJ has. That's the real big difference. Doesn't have all the PTSD and anxiety. Nico B says, I'm not sure AJ's as washed as you think. He still punches extremely hard when confident. I think overconfidence was the problem versus Dubois. See, I think the opposite. I think he was scared to death against Dubois. I don't think he was confident at all. I mean, at the weigh-in, he turned to the crowd and he asked them to pray for him. Does that sound like a confident person to you? On the way to the ring, you look like a man that was walking to the gallows. So I don't think overconfidence was an issue for AJ at all. I think he was scared to bits. He was shook to bits. And to be that scared against a less experienced opponent when you're a veteran, a two-time heavyweight champion, that's a terrible, terrible look. Dubois should have been the one that was more nervous. And AJ fought like a nervous guy, rushing his punches. Everything about it was a nervous performance. So, if he was traumatized by Ruiz, imagine how traumatized he's going to be now. Exactly as Telstar said. He said, Hatman, I agree. In fact, I feel like when AJ gets nervous, his defense gets worse. Exactly that. It's like a nervous person taking a driving test or even taking a driving lesson. Their nerves cause them to make loads of mistakes. They're so terrified of messing up that it causes them to mess up. When you're relaxed, you make less mistakes. Obviously, you don't want to be too relaxed. You don't want to be asleep. But AJ certainly worked well. He was asleep at the end. But at the start, I mean, he was too keyed up. He was too nervous. That was one of the most bizarre things I've seen in boxing. A fighter of AJ's experience going up against a less experienced guy, turning to the crowd at the weigh-in saying, pray for me. Have any of you ever seen anything like that before? Because I swear I never have. Omar says, talking about driving tests, I failed for the 8th time last week switching to automatic. Where do you live? If I can just ask that question. Because it absolutely is the case that doing your driving test can be much more difficult in some areas than others. Some parts of the country have much higher pass rates than others. Denmark, oh, okay, I couldn't advise you on Denmark then. If you're from the UK, I might be able to advise you, but I don't know anything about Denmark, so I can't tell you. Can't help you with that one. But what I will say to anyone who's trying to pass their driving test in London and they're not having success is pick some town in Hertfordshire or in Essex or one of the home counties. Some small town. It helps if you know someone out there. But go book your driving test out there because it's most likely going to be far easier. In London, because of the congestion charge and all the quotas and all this kind of, they can deny it all they want. The DVLA will deny it all they want. But I'm telling you, in my opinion, they are incentivized, particularly at certain times of the year, not to pass too many people. So they're going to try and take you on the most difficult routes and trip you up as much as possible. Whereas when you go out to a small town, they barely have any congestion. They're going to take you down the quiet residential streets and they're not going to try and trip you up and you'll pass. Shout out to Grizz for the super chat. Is what African country has the best women? Well, it depends what you mean by best. In terms of looks or in terms of beauty? I just said looks. In terms of behavior, excuse me. In terms of behavior or in terms of beauty? Excuse me. Just waiting for Grizz to give me some clarification on the question. Best women in terms of behavior or beauty? 1-1 says, I don't think there is a best. It's just about what you like, I guess. Yeah, particularly with looks, it's subjective, innit? But with behavior, there's probably a bit more of a consensus. Rye says Peter Quillen looked during his fights like he wanted 8 billion prayers. That's a whole fact. All right, Grizz D hasn't clarified whether he meant best women in terms of looks or behavior, so I'll try and answer the question regardless. In terms of looks, I would probably say the consensus, and I wouldn't argue too hard against it, I'd probably say the consensus would be that South African women are the best looking. But paradoxically, they are the worst behaved, if that's even a paradox. But yeah, I would say they're the worst in terms of behavior, South African women. They're like the worst of the worst. You can't get much worse in terms of behavior than South African women. So they're beautiful on the outside, but hideous on the inside. I'm generalizing, obviously. Kayvon Green says West Indian women are the best looking. Not even close, bro. Not even close. I've been all over the Caribbean, bro, and I'm telling you, it's nothing like here in Africa at all. I would say the best looking women in the Caribbean from the countries I've been to are Bayesian women. Women in Barbados. I'd say they're the best looking. Definitely not Jamaican women. No. Trini women, I mean, not really my type overall. I'd say Bayesian women are the best looking in the Caribbean. You know, like the figures, the shape and everything. Beautiful skin. Everyone's got such healthy looking skin in Barbados. But it's nothing like Africa, bro. Africa's just on a totally different level. If you like black women, I'm telling you, you don't know the levels until you come to Africa. You just don't know the levels. NJ says Jamaicans are the best behaved. I assume you're trolling. Jamaicans are the best behaved. Oh. I prefer brown-skinned women, women who are right there in the middle. Not light skin, not super dark skin, just brown skin, right there in the middle. If I had to choose between dark skin and light, I go dark. But preferably just right there in the middle, brown skin women. Kayvon Green says West Indians will pretend not to notice. All right, peeps, gonna shut this one down. Hang on. The box says, I remember when Fury fans claimed he went down in the 12th. I guess you meant against Wilder. To make the fight more dramatic, I kid you not. I believe you. They've said some bizarre things. But yeah, gonna shut this one down. I'd like to thank each and every one of you for joining the conversation. With a special shout out to those who donated via Super Chat. Just give me a second to call your names. Mr. Luca, James Wood, Matt Borgerson, Alex, Supersized Fries, Paolo the Geek, Pook Lartridge, Cobezilla, FIFA Junior, Arco, Busy Clergy. It's an interesting name, isn't it? Busy Clergy. Are the clergy ever busy? Grizz D and Kayvon Green. Big up, big up. Until next time, take care, be good. I'll catch you on the other side. I'm out.